1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock.
From the 1930s to the 1960s, so many great artists grace our earth with their talents. From painters to musicians to writers, we had them all. Although they are all deserving, there may only be one inductee into our Hall of Fame, one who outshines the rest. But who will it be? Edward Hopper is a well-known artist who lived from 1882 to 1967. He grew up in a well-off family in New York, and from his early childhood years, he showed an interest in art which his parents greatly encouraged. He studied at the New York School of Art and Design, and through his teachers and experiences from his trips to Paris, he was able to begin to develop his artistic style. After college, Hopper started out by doing illustrations for magazines and movies, but he was very unsatisfied with this type of work. After marrying Josephine Nivison and permanently moving to Greenwich Village in New York City, Hopper's artistic career was able to take off. Throughout the next few decades, Hopper was able to enjoy success as an artist, winning awards, selling paintings, and having his paintings featured in museums like the MoMA and the Met. Most of Hopper's art reflected his prominent artistic style of realism. Many of his paintings captured the loneliness and alienation of American life. Unlike most people of the time, Hopper didn't try to portray the time period as cookie-cutter and perfect as everyone else did. Instead, he portrayed life realistically, the way he saw it.
Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoe.
Elvis Presley was born in Mississippi, and growing up he always loved music. In his teenage years, he moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and during this time he began to develop his signature look and style. Throughout these years, Elvis was told many times that he would never amount to anything in the music world, but after working at a radio station, being given an opportunity to record a song, he proved everyone wrong. People went crazy over this young white boy's ability to create the sound of black musicians, rock and roll. Pretty soon, Presley's music career took off. He performed several times on The Ed Sullivan Show, released many albums, and made many TV and movie appearances. When Presley was drafted into the war, teenage girls all over the nation went absolutely insane.
The tempo is hut 2, 3, 4 for Private Presley. He's at Camp Chaffee, Arkansas, beginning his 2-year Army hitch courtesy of the Memphis Draft Board. Like any ex-civilian raw recruit, the king of rock and roll will be keeping time to non-hip bugle calls. Involuntarily retired, a gyrating guitarist's departure from the public eye left his blue jean fans all shook up, so we hear. But Elvis doesn't seem to mind at all.
Through his music and the way he expressed it, Elvis was able to defy social norms. His songs and sexually suggestive dance moves horrified parents while thrilling teens who were enjoying this new alternative to the conservative normality they always knew. By the end of his career, Elvis could proudly wear the title of King of Rock and Roll.
Frank Sinatra was born in 1915 into a Roman Catholic household in Hoboken, New Jersey. He was the only son of Italian immigrants Natalina Garaventi and Antonino Martino Sinatra. Sinatra always had his heart set on music. Ironically, he never actually learned to read it. Everything he knew about music was what he had heard by ear. He started his musical career with a local band by the name of the Three Flashes, also known as the Hoboken Four. He was constantly on the top 10 singles lists, and his success skyrocketed after he began to appear solo. Sinatra had 4 wives, the first of which he had 3 kids with, Nancy, Frank, and Tina. Frank's career expanded as he debuted in famous films such as The Manchurian Candidate and The Golden Arm, and numerous other commercials. His popularity swept the nation and he performed on many stages.
Lucky Strike presents Mark Warnow and the Lucky Strike Orchestra, the hit paraders, and the singing star of your hit parade, Frank Sinatra.
Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a song, the melody haunts my reverie, and I am once again with you.
Jackson Pollock was born in Cody, Wyoming in 1912. He was the youngest of 5 brothers. He often went on survey trips with his father to study Native American culture. During the Great Depression, Jackson worked for the WPA Federal Art Project. His art was often influenced by other famous artists such as Diego Rivera of Mexico. Pollock had developed his own style, which was known as abstract expressionism, a post-World War II movement that swept the artists in America. His style included fixing canvas to the wall or the floor instead of the easel. Pollock used objects rather than paint brushes to drip paint onto the canvas. This was called action painting. It was often tied to artists' emotions and showcased their feelings in their designs. For this, he was named Jack the Dripper by Times Magazine. After a decade of ridicule, he took his rightful place as one of the most important art figures in the world.
Jerome David Salinger, better known as J.D. Salinger, was an acclaimed and successful author of the 20th century. Born on January 1, 1919 in New York, he was the youngest of 2 children and son to Saul and Miriam Salinger. As a child, he performed poorly in academics and was deemed as simply average. It was not until college that his work began to become noticed. While taking classes during the night at Columbia University, Salinger was introduced to Whit Burnett, who recognized his talent in writing. Because Burnett was the editor of a well-known magazine of the time, he pushed Salinger to work harder, and in no time at all, his literary pieces were being published in big-name magazines, such as The Story, Collier's, and the Saturday Evening Post. Just as his career began to take off, however, World War II began, and like many Americans, Salinger was drafted into the war. Even while serving his country, he continued to write, beginning what would soon be known as one of his most famous pieces, Catcher in the Rye. The novel, which centered around the main character, Holden Caulfield, brought to light the perspective of teenagers, something never done before. Because of this, his writing enticed not only older audiences, but adolescents as well, and is considered a literary masterpiece and very well a classic. Afterwards, he continued to publish multiple stories, such as 9 Stories, Franny and Zoe, and 3 Early Stories, and by the end of his career left an impact on the literary world. Cultural icon of the pop art movement, Andy Warhol was born August 6, 1928 into a working-class family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At a young age, Warhol found that he was often rejected by his classmates and that he didn't fit in or make friends easily. When he was 8, Warhol contracted chorea, a rare disease that left him bedridden. During that time, his mother gave him one of his first art lessons, which Warhol would often credit in the future as a turning point in his life. In 1949, after graduating from Carnegie Mellon University, he moved to New York in hopes of pursuing a career in commercial art. Advertising proved to come easily for Andy, and in 1952, he had his first solo exhibition in the Hugo Gallery. Warhol was at the forefront of pop movement where artists use everyday items as subjects. Andy, who found a fondness towards the idea, showcased his famous 32 Campbell soup cans in 1962.
Andy, do you feel that the public has insulted your art?
No.
Why not?
Well, I hadn't thought about it.
It doesn't bother you at all, then?
No.
Well, do you think that they've shown a lack of appreciation for what pop art means?
No.
Andy, do you think that pop art has sort of reached the point where it's becoming repetitious now?
Yes.
Do you think it should break away from being pop art?
No.
Are you just going to carry on?
Yes.
Warhol's painting of celebrities also attracted much attention and, as proof, sold for millions. In the 1970s, Warhol began to expand his work, first releasing the book Andy Warhol's Index and then writing The Philosophy of Andy Warhol. He also began showing an interest in filming, and by the end of his career produced more than 60 films, such as Sleep, depicting a man sleeping, and Eat, depicting a man eating. Once a social outcast, Warhol rose to become one of the most legendary artists of the 20th century, whose influence still continues to grow today.
And the winner is Elvis Presley!
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there, they began to wail. The band was jumping down the joint.
Elvis Presley is our Hall of Fame winner because he left the biggest impact on American lives and culture. We thought he was the best representation of someone who captivated America and was best able to defy social norms in front of millions. Elvis Presley has left a long-lasting impact on the music industry, becoming the king of rock and roll, and on our society as well. For these reasons, Elvis Presley is our Hall of Fame winner. Congrats, Elvis! Woo!